We'll start to go back. Oh, it was too hard. It was too difficult. This subject.
It was too holy. The
Too
internet
holy.
couldn't. The internet could not hold all the spiritual light. It blew out.
It blew out. I think it was my internet. Well, I'm sorry. I apologize. Let's go back. What a crazy situation. Wow, that was the first time, but it's always the first for everything. Okay, wow. So where was I holding? I don't know. It just blew away. Got blown away. Got blown away. Okay, so let's go back. Let's start again. Not start again. Let's go back over here a little bit. We're going to learn deep stuff in Kabbalah. Blew us out of the water.
You start with the interfacing.
So that's what happened. What happened was, as it brought down in Kabbalah, that each and every one of the spheres, there was too much oiris and no kalim. So the Abish, the God created the kalim vessels where the oiris would come into, would mix together, would be able to work with one another. It means gevura, chesed, for example, kindness, would mix together with gevura, interfacing with one another. But it was not possible because the oil of chesed was too strong for it to be able to mix with gevura, and because of that, it was impossible for the two to come united as one, and that created what's called in Chassidus Shviras HaKelim, the breakage of the vessels. What happens when you have breakage about too much oil? There's not a capability of the unification of these two entities. They might be both very holy, but that creates a negative. Two positives create a negative. And when they created this negative, that means it gave the capability, that means in their strength of holiness gave the capability for the concept of unholiness to be able to get its unika, to be able to get its connection. And that's why it's wrote down, actually, the greatest gullus is when you have great sages that argue, not for the sake of, and it brings about a negative connotation. It brings about a negative concept when you have great concepts that cannot unite for whatever reason because it's too much oil, too much light. It brings about a negative. It brings about the concept of negativity. As we know, the famous debate between the Alter Rebbe and the Vilna Gaon was the Alter Rebbe wanted to connect, wanted to bring together him and the Vilna Gaon. He wanted to reach the Vilna Gaon and wanted to meet the Vilna Gaon to be able to make some kind of understanding between these two entities, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and it had a great effect in history because these two great entities couldn't come together. And the Alter Rebbe wanted to come together with him, and those that were surrounding him didn't allow it, as we know the story in history. The Alter Rebbe once said that I wish, when he wanted to even make the connection between the Vilna Gaon and the Mishnah Maggid, he said, I wish I would have broken down the door of the Vilna Gaon to be able to bring these two great people together and make a unified front in these two concepts. But that's what you have. When you don't have that, when you have too much oil in two vessels, you have Shiras HaKelim, you have the breakage of the vessels. And what brings about the breakage of vessels brings about unique that the other aspects of unholy concepts have the capability to have its vitality. But the beauty of it is that ultimately we're going to elevate all this. We're going to ultimately come together, and we're going to show that there's, everything has a place in Torah, and everything has its elevation, everything has its purpose. And Chas v'Shalom is it two entities that are at war, but actually they work together, and they should work together. So after Hashem made the system of Torah, where Kalim shattered, and whose sparks fell into unholiness, Hashem created a second interface of fittest, which is called tikkun. The word tikkun means to fix or to build up. And this set of fittest has the power to fix the shattering of the kalim of Toyu and to build up those sparks into something productive and holy. In the world of Tikkun, the light is limited. That's the difference. That's in general the difference between Toyu and Tikkun. In Toyu, it's too much light and less vessels. And in Tikkun, there's less light and more vessels. And the world of Tikkun, the light is limited enough to properly adapt the parameters of Kalim. Also, the Kalim are able to merge with each other into a cohesive system. Unlike in the spheres of Toyu, that they weren't able to come a cohesive body. They weren't able. It was too much light. An expression. You can't have two kings to wear one crown. It's very difficult. So each Svira was its own king. And not that it hated the other king, but it was impossible. It's not possible for to be two kings in one place. System of Tikkun is in general expresses the spheres of in general expresses in the spheres of Atzilus, but in particular in the divine soul of every Jew. This is what's important. That's the problem. We get lost in the spiritual. The Alter Rebbe says it's not very spiritual. It's very reality. These things are not very out there. This is who you are. You have to look at yourself, and this is who you are, and what we are. This is especially true of the souls of tzaddikim, like Moshe and Aaron, for example. They initiate the process of redeeming the sparks of holiness. So Moshe and Aaron were two different opposites, two brothers who were totally opposite one another. Because Moshe was the concept of Emes and Aaron was the concept of Ava. They were two opposites worked together. The first two brothers in history that worked together were not jealous of one another. From the time of creation, when all the brothers were fighting with each other, came two brothers, and each one understood his purpose, and each one understood that the other person, that to be able to fulfill his purpose, he needed Aaron. And Aaron needed Moshe. They needed each other. They worked together. They broke Egypt together. And they took Yidden through history of that time in history, built up Yidden together, Moshe and Aaron. That's why actually the Torah in last week's Pasha, who Moshe and Aaron, the Torah emphasizes. This is the same Moses who took the Jews out of Mitzrayim, brought them to Matan Torah, went to them 40 years in the desert. These were two brothers, which is symbolic to two different realities, two different powers. You would think they would never come together, but they came together. They came together to create an unbelievable reality together. And that teaches us an unbelievable lesson. This initiated the process of redeeming this box of holiness that fell into Mitzrayim through the 10 plagues and the service of the Jewish people in general, as the Maimon will explain. And that's why this Maimon is important, because we continue to elevate the sparks. We're here to elevate the sparks. And that takes a cohesive togetherness between ourselves. If we are cohesive between ourselves, that means we're emotionally stable within ourselves. How can we elevate this world if we're unstable people? We need to first be stable ourselves. We need to be stable as a Jewish nation. That even though we're different, maybe even the Jewish nation is different, but we work cohesively because we realize that we each need each other. And not that you are more important or I'm more important. We are all equally important. That's the concept of Toyu. In Tikkun, I mean. That's the aspect of Tikkun. And this is what the Eibishter wanted. Not that I should break my vessel for you, or you should break your vessel for me. No, if I'm chesed, I'm chesed. If you're gevura, you're gevura. And now let's learn how to work together to the betterment of the purpose of our journey. I don't have to become you. You don't have to become me. We need to work together to make this world a better world. So this is the way the Alter Rebbe explains it. Give an analogy from the soul of a person. What happened before the soul came to a person? Where was his soul? Before the soul came into the body, it was totally nullified. Before God, it was totally nullified, totally bottled, a spiritual concept. So even though it was a creation in a way, but it was a spiritual concept. And the more it's higher in its spiritual rung lamaila, the more it's bottled to godliness. That's why it loses its physical reality. So as Hashem lives, that I stood before him. Meaning the soul of every Jew has previously stood before Hashem, completely absorbed in his truth. And he was bottled to the Eibush. What does that mean? What does that mean in practical terms? The meaning is that then there was nothing covering it. It was totally over concealing. There was no aspect of conceal. No Mitzrayim. There was no Mitzrayim. He was living in Gan Eden. He was living in the spiritual bliss of God. The relation of Elokus, Hashem, therefore, that's why he was totally absorbed. Not that the Eibush had to break him. The Eibush had to break a soul. The soul is the Maila. He wants to be part of godliness. He wants to be bottled to godliness. He's totally absorbed in godliness. But then, however, after it descends below, to become invested in a physical body, that's the problem. That's the Golas. That's the first Mitzrayim. The first Mitzrayim, the first Egypt is the soul coming down to the body. At that point, the body conceals the revelation of the soul. So that the soul should perceive the world and all therein as through. They are separate, independent of Hashem. That's what the body says. The body tells the soul, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand. What do you mean I should be bottled to God? I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't talk my language. I don't have to be bottled to anybody. I'm a human being. I'm my own man. I don't have to be bottled to anybody. You're telling me I should nullify myself to somebody? I have to nullify myself to nobody. Everybody should be nullified to me. I have to be nullified to nobody. That's a choshech. That's choshech. That's choshech. That's gullus. That's already the concept. That's a seidash. That's what we learn in Tanya. That is the hidden aspect of the gullus hashchina, the exile of the presence of God, because the presence of God is not present anymore. It's my presence. I'm here. The Ein Raya, and he doesn't see how all the worlds are totally independent, are totally dependent upon Hashem, infinite light, to constantly give them. He doesn't see that. He doesn't see that. He sees his own entity. He's chaotic. He's Toyu. Similarly, by analogy, is the case regarding the shattering of the Kalim. The shattering of the Kalim of Toyu. The spark of Toyu fell down until it became invested in Klippa. These Klippas cover over these sparks. That's it. We're dust in Toyu. We think we think we're in control. We think our goof is in control. Just like the spark of holiness that fell into uncleanliness. He does the uncleanliness. What means unclean? What means tumah? Tumah means death. Something that the ultimate aspect of tumah is dead. It's dead, but it's still there. When something is dead, he's still there. But he's dead. What does that mean? That means that the life force that's in that dead entity is still there, but it's dead. It has no vitality. The life force is not working, but it's still there. That means it's still giving its life force, but it's dead. That's tumma. That's impurity. Impurity is when a person thinks that his life force is from his own entity, is from his own powers. But really, it's the godly spark that's in him. But he doesn't feel that it's a godly spark. He thinks it's the food that he eats. He thinks that it's the exercise that he does. He thinks it's the will that gives him his power. Not the, what do you mean the God? Where's my God? I'm not getting energy from some godly force. That's tumma. That's the concept of impurity. That's the concept of God, of Gullus. The sparks of Tanya fell down until they became invested in clippers of the clippers covered over these sparks and bring concealment to them from all sides, so they did not be able to experience the revelation of Hashem's infinite light. And what happens? Until these sparks are able to feel themselves as being totally separate and, God forbid, independent from Hashem. That is Shviras HaKelim, that fell into the sparks of godliness, that fell into a capability of klippa covering and an aspect of impurity as sitra achra. And the truth is, that's what happens when my neshama comes to my guf. Here, my neshama comes to the guf and gives me life. And I think, I don't feel that life from my neshama. I think I have my life is because I ate food today. That's why I'm alive. Not because I have a neshama that gives me life. It's my physical reality. Like the Pharaoh, the Alter Rebbe said. The Pharaoh, what did the Pharaoh said? The Pharaoh said, I don't know, God. Li oidi, I own the river. Vani asisini, and I made it. What do you mean? God sustains Mitzrayim. I sustain Mitzrayim. I have a Nile, and I made the Nile, and I survive with the Nile. You tell me God made? I don't see God. I know what you're talking about. Oh, but I believe in God. He's some God out there. Like the only that the Clippers say God is all for. He's of all other. He's the God. He's the main guy. So we all believe in God. Oh, well, all of us believe in God. But that God is me, he has a power over me. No, God's this major force. The big Don guy, he's the God of all gods. And he's too busy. He thinks about me. No. God is everybody believes in God. But is God actually giving me my life force? He's involved with me? I don't believe so. So Alter Rebbe asked a very interesting question. Even though before the shattering of the vessels, these same sparks were totally absorbed and unified with Hashem's infinite light. So what happened? How is it possible that these lights in Toyu, the world of chaos, that would, even if they would break, they would come and seemingly have the capability of losing their true identity? Because they were infused Hashem's infinite light. This is because then the infinite light was completely revealed to them and therefore united with them. That's the difference in the world of Toyo. As the neshama is an above in the world, in Gan Eden, in the paradise before it comes down to a body. Over there, the revelation of God is strong. Totally bottled. However, after the shattering of the Kalim, these sparks fell and became invested in clippers. Again, like the neshama. The neshama, once it becomes part of the guf is very powerful. The vessels are very powerful, which envelops them and hides from them the revelation of Hashem. Just like the body covers over the soul and conceals it from the revelation of Hashem as described above. And therefore, these sparks are not able to become absorbed in the holiness like they were originally. And for this reason, listen to these words, the holiness is called klippus. Klippus. Klippa means a shell. It means a peel. We call it klippa. Why? Because the Alter Rebbe continues, since they are like a peel that encompasses and surrounds the fruit, that is hidden inside of it and conceals it, like the shell of a nut. There's different kinds of peels. There's a peel, as we learned in Chassidus, there's a peel that is eaten with the fruit. There's a peel that cannot be eaten with the fruit. There's a peel that is extremely on a nut that's very like a banana has a peel also. You can peel it off easy. An apple has a peel. Can be eaten with the fruit. A peel of a grape can be eaten with the grape. But then you have a peel of a nut. Cannot. You have to break the peel, to break the cover. And the Alter Rebbe says, like a shell of a nut, klippas eges. And there's no remedy. When you want to eat the nut, there's no remedy. You cannot eat the peel to extract the fruit without breaking the shell or the peel. That's how much klippa do we have? How thick is our vessel? How thick is the vessel? You can have a very thick vessel. You can have a very thin vessel. So too, in order to remove the sparks of holiness from klippas that conceal it, there needs to be the process of shviras haklippas. Just like there was shviras hakelim, we need to have shviras haklippas. We need the breakage of the klippa. Now we understand how the Rebbe says. This was the purpose of the signs and the wonders, the plagues. This is all the 10 plagues, is the breakage of klippas, for the Jews to be able to reveal the godliness in Mitzrayim, so that they would empty out Egypt. They needed to break Mitzrayim. God needed to help them break Mitzrayim, the plagues that were performed in Mitzrayim, as we further explain in Hashem, with Hashem's word. And again, we're not going to be able to get to every part of this Maimon because it's already 5 to 11. So time has flown by. Let's just touch a little more Kabbalah. I think this is such a beautiful thing. And again, I think you should download this Maimon. I gave you the link to be able to do that. And learn this Maimon. It's very beautiful, and they do a great job. But let's touch this, a little more Kabbalistic. And I want to touch this. It is written, and a river came flowing from Eden. This is in the beginning of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 10 and 11. We're going back to the beginning of creation. Something that we read every year, and most people don't understand what that means. And here the Alter Rebbe is going to give you a Kabbalistic interpretation of a beautiful concept of the Torah. It says, and actually in this book, this Maimon, they give you pictures. The river came flowing out of Eden to give water to the garden. Lahashke Sagan. In essence, that we call it Gan Eden, but really, Eden is higher than Gan. If you look at the Torah, there's Eden, and from the Eden it came to the Gan. So Eden was the water to the garden. So it's not really Gan Eden, it's Eden Gan. Whatever, that's not the point over here. And it passed through the garden. And there it split up into 4 river heads. The name of the 4 rivers was Pishon, which over here, this Maimon Pishon was the Nile River. Was one of the rivers that came into, look, here the Alter Rebbe will give us this so beautiful. Will give us a mystical interpretation to these verses. To better understand this, we'll go through how these verses are understood on a literal level, then on a mystical level. When Hashem made the world, he created a place called Eden. To the east of this place, he created a place called Gan. It was a river. It's all in the Torah. There was a river that flowed from Eden to the Gan, to the garden, which watered all the planets and the trees in the garden, or the plants and trees in the garden. After this river passed through the garden, it submerged underground and resurfaced as 4 different rivers. One river is Pishon, was the Nile that flows through Mitzrayim. The second river was Gihon, the Blue Nile that surrounds Ethiopia. The third river was Hidekel, the Tigris near Assyria. And the fourth river was Pras. This is all in the Torah, the Euphrates. That's what the Torah says. On a mystical level, this is where the Alter Rebbe learns it. This river from Eden is a river of the divine light that flows from the highest level of Atzilus, called Chokhmah, wisdom, all the way until the lowest level of Atzilus, known as the garden, which is the Malchus of the kingship of Atzilus. So now, as I told you, there's Eden and there's Gan. Eden. What is Eden? Eden is pleasure. It's Chachma. Chachma is wisdom, is also called Eden, pleasure, since Hashem's pleasure is expressed in its Chachma. That's the pleasure, that's the above the crown of the king, of the Chachma. Of this river of life, given divine light flows through Atzilus. It's still one river. Since this light is united with the spheres of Atzilus, the will of emanation, and the spheres in each other. This analogous to the body, that one soul flowing through it. Since the various parts of the body parts form one cohesive entity, that's in the world of Atzilus. However, after this river of light flows through Malchus, the garden, now it's when it comes to Malchus, the world of Atzilus, the world of emanation, now it splits off into different gardens. Now it comes submerged into different levels of existence, where Hashem's move down, oneness is not openly revealed. In this level, the created beings do not feel united with divine light, nor with each other. This river of light resurfaces into 4 different rivers, meaning it becomes expressed differently in different aspects of creation. For example, the 4 elements of fire, air, water, and earth, which we learn of this, each represent a different tendency and aspects manifest through all levels of creation. This is learning over here something. It's amazing. After this river of life flows through the various aspects of the spiritual worlds into the physical world, it further descends to give life to even the lower dimension of existence, which is klippa and unholiness, because that also is still here in the world. If klippa itself, in klippa itself, there are 4 kingdoms. That's the 4 gullahs, 4 exiles. There are 4 kingdoms that tried to enslave the Jewish people, or at least to stop them from serving Hashem. What are the 4 kingdoms? Mitzrayim, Bavel, Yavan, Greece, and we are in the last kingdom, the kingdom of Rome. Those are the 4 rivers that come out of Gan, come out of the Gan, the garden. These 4 kingdoms of unholiness receive their life from the 4 rivers flowing through the spiritual world, which correspond to the 4 physical rivers that come from the garden.
Rome.
So we have the, yes?
Got it.
Somebody ask something?
No, got it.
The kingdom of Mitzrayim received their life force from the spiritual river of Pishon, from the Nile, which also was manifest in the physical river of the Nile that flowed through the land until today. After the sin of the tree of knowledge by Adam, the first man, the sparks of Toyu fell from them into the physical and the spiritual river that flowed out of the garden where he was. Then later became expressed in all the unholiness in the world, but primarily in the four kingdoms that enslaved the Jewish people. Now we have the whole reason of that whole beginning of the Torah with this whole thing. What most of us don't understand. What is the Torah telling us with this whole rivers? More of these sparks of Torah fell then to the rivers, fell into the spiritual river of Pishon that gives life to Mitzrayim, then in other spiritual rivers. These sparks were redeemed through the Jewish people's self-sacrifice and the miracles of the plague of Mitzrayim. Now you know why we have gone through in the last 2,000 or more than that, over 3,000 years, we've gone through 4 Goluses, because those are the 4 rivers. We are holding the last river. But it all started off from the river of Pishon, which is the first Golus, the Golus of Mitzrayim. The mystical meaning of this, the river that came flowing out of Eden, is a reference to the flow of light of wisdom above the world of Atzilus, which is referred to as Eden, in which Hashem's infinite light is expressed. Uba, Hashem, infinite light is drawn forth into the entire world of Atzilus, and through this level of wisdom and Eden, which is higher than the Chachma, until it becomes expressed in the level of Malchus of Atzilus, which is the world of emanation, which is referred to as the garden. And this is the meaning, to give water to the garden, meaning to draw down Hashem's life-giving light into Malchus, which is called the garden. Eden and garden. It's what the world of Atzilus, Hashem's light, and its Kalim are totally unified. That's why we understand why in the world of Atzilus, that's the first world in the world of Tikkun. In the world of Atzilus, which is the world of Tikkun, not the world of Toyu, but the world of Tikkun. In that world, in the first world of emanation, there was still a garden. There, the river, the spirit, the godliness, the revelation of God brought unity in all the vessels in that world. But then when it came into the world of Malchus, which is the lowest level of that world of Atzilus, then it started to spread into 4 different rivers. That means, why? Because then the light of God from Atzilus to the world of Bria was a contraction that brought about a creation. 4 different identities. Now the vessels started to receive more and more identity. That's the concept of the 4 worlds. That as the spirituality traveled from one world to another world, from one contraction to another contraction, the vessels became more dense and more thick and more separate. Because in the world of Atzilus, Hashem's light and his Kalim are totally unified. And there was a scalus, there was a unity between all the vessels, between the oil, between the light of God and its vessels. So therefore, it was like one river. There was only one expression of godliness in that world. But then there was a great contraction, a great meitzar, contraction between the world of emanation and the world of creation. Therefore, that river which Alter Rebbe is translating of light of Atzilus, the river is compared to a light, a flowing of light. It was still one, since the world of Hashem's oneness was being expressed. Once, however, this river of life reached the beginning of the world of Bria through Malchus, from there it split up into levels of separation and division. So it turned to 4 different rivers of light. Since the world of Bria is the beginning of division. Now, just as the analogy of the physical rivers, one river is not the same as another river, neither in the quality, since one river will have sweet and clear water compared to a different river, nor in quantity, since one river may run for 200 miles and another may run for 100 miles and the like. So too the rivers of light above in the spiritual world are not the same. Meaning, the sparks of the world of Torah were drawn down and fell into the spiritual rivers. The river called Pishon, which is a reference to the Nile River, where they presented the angel. The spiritual flow of life was appointed over the land of Mitzrayim. More sparks fell there. The amount of the type of sparks that fell into the spiritual river of Bavel or in other spiritual rivers. And that's why over there it was a different, the elevation of the sparks at that time was different than the sparks of Bavel, the river of Bavel, or ultimately the river of what we're in, the river of Rome. So here you have a picture, actually. Here you have the picture. You see, picture and tell. So you have Atzilus, the river of divine light. Over there, it's one, and then it's divided into 4 different rivers. The river of it went through Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, the physical world, and ultimately into Klippa, which is the 4 kingdoms, which the Alter Rebbe said in the beginning of Tanya is of fire, air, and water and earth is symbolic to 4 evil kingdoms, which is in our own existence, which give the capability for the concept of total evil within our own existence. Whoa, baby. Okay. That's right. This is great stuff, I tell you. I've learned it so many times, but every time I learn it, I'm inspired. What did I tell you? What a shame. Now we understand the idea, the wonders that Hashem showed them to Mitzrayim. And it's written, and the Mitzrayim will know that I am Hashem. The word v'yadu, which usually connotates knowing, and also connotates breaking. As it's written, and he, Gidon, Yoda, broke the people of Sukkot were there. So Yoda, when you know something, you're breaking your klippos. That's what it says. The idea is explained above. In order to extract the spark of holiness from the klippa, which covers over it, this can only be done by breaking the klippa. Analogy of the nut that cannot be extracted. The idea of breaking the klippa reveals the infinite light of Hashem's to spark, enabling us to become absorbed. Okay. Alter Rebbe continues. This is great stuff. I don't know. You guys got to download this and learn this whole thing. I'm telling you, it's going to open your eyes to something special in your life. And whatever. Anybody have a question? Anybody want to say something? It's not good stuff. It's great stuff. This is unbelievable stuff. To learn this is a schus, to merit that we have the capability and the way that they give you the translation and the interpretation. I'm telling you, you need to learn this, and it's going to give you a whole different way to look at the parsha. And Jenny, you should learn this. It takes a lifetime. Who's in a rush? You in a rush someplace? I have if I understand everything, then I don't need to be anymore. So I have a lot to learn yet. I hope to live a very, very long life. I continue to learn and continue to delve in these beautiful stuff that gives us a whole different understanding of what we're reading and what we're learning about. It's not something about the past. It's something about the present. It's something about our lives right now. That we are the Paro. We are the Nahar, this river that's going through our lives. Akita, I wish you all a wonderful, beautiful day. We should continue to learn Chassidus every day of our lives. But it's great to learn with you guys, as always. Let's all have a wonderful week and a wonderful Chodesh, a beautiful month. And I hope to see you all tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. We'll continue Chitas. And we're having actually a great speaker this coming Thursday night of Moshe Brisky at 7 p.m. on Zoom. You're all welcome to come. He's a phenomenal speaker. And he's going to inspire us as we get closer to Yud Shvat. This Shabbos is Yud Shvat, the 10th of Shvat, which is the 70th year of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, our Rebbe's leadership from 1951 till this present time. Let us hope that we'll complete the elevation of the sparks of our river, the river of Rome. After 2,000 years, we'll elevate our sparks of this river. We'll empty out the river of Rome. Just like they emptied out the river of Egypt, we'll empty out the river of Rome. All the netzutzis, all the sparks in this river, and we'll dance out of this gullus, out of this exile with the coming of Mashiach. Mamish. Amen. Have a beautiful, happy, and healthy day.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
God bless.
Thank you.